one of the other long-running segments on this show, on the previous platform and platforms even before that, was Highway to Health. It is near and dear to Dave's heart because, in fact, if you are not all together as yourself behind the wheel, it doesn't matter what's under the hood. It doesn't matter where you're sitting. It doesn't matter who you work for. It's going to be a very, very short trip. This is a chance to actually kind of dig in and figure out better strategies for living, better strategies for life, and a highway that leads to health. Dr. Julie Gatza, by the way, is a health educator, a nutrition expert, a chiropractic physician, and the founder of Florida's Wellness Institutes. She comes on here to discuss the latest trends and how to find the root causes of common ailments and fix them for more energy and improved health, and has actually done this with us before on many occasions. It's her first time appearing on this new platform. Hey, Dr. Julie, how are you? Welcome back.
Thanks. I'm good. Glad to be here.
Um, Interestingly enough, I've actually been having an easier time this summer in the last month or so because I made the decision I'm going to stop eating heavy. The heat is actually killing me. I'm going to swap over to salads and some fresh fruit. And I think part of what you kind of want to talk about here is that as the temperatures get higher, people don't eat the way they should and they don't take care of themselves in regards to their dietary approaches when we deal with the hot town summer in the city or even the concrete and the asphalt coming off the long drives people take. How do we actually prepare to eat on a regular basis and make sure our digestion is in the right place during those awfully hot summer months?
Well, since digestion is basically the most important body part that should be working efficiently because that's how you're getting in all your nutrition. That's the one that I put the most attention on in the last 34 years of doctoring. And what happens when you have heat or stress or a broken ankle or a fight or poor sleep, any of these stressors ask other systems to work in priority compared to digestion. So digestion goes a little dormant, it goes quiet, it's not the one that's kicking hard. So if you're under any type of stress, heat included, that's when you'll want to eat foods that you can break down better, whether that be soup and broth and things like that, light salads, steam your vegetables a bit to give yourself the ability to break down the cell wall. If you're going to eat the protein, and I always encourage you to eat it first, fish and chicken and lighter proteins, eggs would be better for you than eating a lot of heavy red meat and a lot of carbs at this point.
In regards to strategies for when we should actually begin refueling, I had a friend of mine who once told me, he said, God, I wish we were like cars. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, I wish you actually had this tank that told you when it was time to refill it. And you can just run the tank down and refill it and never go above it, never top the line. And I said, that's not exactly right, my friend. I said, that's not exactly, I said, you don't want that kind of situation and that kind of setup. I wanted to talk about strategies for refueling. Are there numerous approaches, or is there a really kind of optimum approach for when we should eat during the summer months, particularly in hotter regions?
You know, there's numerous approaches. I like when people switch it up a bit. You know, some people do very well with intermittent fasting and having only one meal a day. Other people need 5, 6 small meals within the day. You know, some do fine just with 3. And you can find your happy medium somewhere in there if you just goof around with it a bit. I do say eat when you're hungry. There's no need to sit down and have to eat just because you have to eat, unless you have a blood sugar problem. I think it's good for the body to actually think it's a little stressed out on, you know, needing food and not constantly keeping it sated and filled at all levels.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about too, and I know this ties in amazingly, and many of our listeners know to do this, but some of them, I make a joke all the time, and Dre knows it too well. My father-in-law knows it too well. I said, God deliver me from one old man who won't drink water. And and the thing about consuming water is that if I understand correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that our desire to actually satiate our thirst is not too different from our desire to actually eat. And is it always a good idea before deciding to eat to actually drink the water that you need to make sure that you're actually hungry? Am I understanding that correctly?
You know, there's double viewpoints on it. The water has a tendency to dilute your digestive enzymes.
Okay.
And we aren't making enough of them anyhow. Our food source isn't so great. What we're doing to our soil and all the different, you know, pesticides that we're using, we don't have the nutrition in our food the way we did in the 70s. So when you're consuming a lot of water during or before a meal, you're diluting your digestive enzymes, and that's going to keep you from getting the nutrients from your food. So I would say the best strategy you can have with water is to drink frequently. You don't have to gulp it all at once, but frequent sipping of water throughout the day would hydrate your cells and keep you, feeling really good. And the average is about 8-ounce glasses in a day. Now, if you're bigger, more. If you're smaller, you can get away with a little less.
And you say about the idea of it breaking down and diluting our digestive enzymes. Are there any things that we can consume as like I'm going to call it an appetizer for lack of a better word? Are there or ways of priming the pump? Are there things that we can begin to consume that will get them going and actually put us in a position to maximize our nutrient access to the food that we're consuming?
Yeah, and that's a good question. We have so many ethnicities in this country, and so many of these groups brought their own sort of aids to digestion.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the Germans with the sauerkraut and kimchi in Korea, and ginger with the Japanese. You've got the peppers that came with the Latinos. So all these different things aided. You've got peppermint, and we have pickles and vinegary type things that will all aid in digestion. I have been a huge proponent of people taking extra digestive enzymes, high quality digestive enzymes with their meals over the years, because I think it's more important than a multivitamin for you to get the nutrition from your food rather than always trying to supplement it another way. That's the first way you should start. So I use a company called Absorbaid because they make great vegan digestive enzymes that do the trick of breaking down the fats and the proteins and the carbs and the fruits and even dairy products.
Okay, I'm going to go to left field here for a second. Maybe you know the answer to this. I have often been told that if you're going to take prescription medication, that grapefruit might not be the best thing to eat before then if you don't want to suddenly get, maximized for what the prescription does. I don't know if that's an old wives' tale. I don't know if that's a bunch of old dudes sitting on a porch and just making stuff up. But in regards to if I'm going to, is that why a lot of people eat salad before they actually start the meal? Is this an attempt to actually kind of jumpstart that digestion? Is
Yes.
that one of the strategies?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. And it does help the body. I'm always saying to people, go eat your protein first. I don't care if somebody wants to have, a small salad. I just don't want them filling up on the salad and
Right.
then saying, oh, yeah, protein somewhere along the line, because the protein's the hardest to break down. It's the one that we need the most at a cellular level, and you don't want to ignore that first. So yes, a small salad, something vinegary, something fermented will start the whole process rolling.
So you talk about the idea that we do want to be drinking water, but anywhere between like 7 and 9 a day, depending upon our size and our calibration, as it were, while taking sips to not overwhelm ourselves and kind of drown ourselves in water. Are there options that can be added to water, or are there options outside of water that maybe we should also consider that are going to help the process move along?
I've never been a fan of outside water things, from the electrolyte solutions and all the pops and juices and things like that. I'm very much into, drink your water, get it from the best source you can. Everyone's fighting about who has it, but, drink good water. And if you want to flavor it with cucumber and strawberries and mint and lemon and lime and oranges and things just to get it so that it tastes better to you, or you want to drink it more, that's totally fine and highly recommended. But to drink the flavored waters and all the other strange things out there, you're not doing yourself a service, especially the sports drinks. They're so sugared up and put so many electrolytes in them that they actually start to take the electrolytes out of your own system. I had a patient that we couldn't figure it out at all what was going on with him, and finally I found out how many electrolytes he was drinking, and it was the source of why he was feeling lousy for weeks. He's just drinking water.
By the way, I am so grateful to hear you say that. That makes me so happy because I'm a big, big fan of water. I know everybody's a fan of water. I mean, after all, it makes up a little bit of our body, just a little bit. But I'm actually delighted because I've often heard people say, "We got to add this, you got to add that." And while I'm a big fan of a little bit of cucumber in there, that's a different animal than adding, things that maybe shouldn't be supplementing the drink. People often forget this too. I talked about the idea of the water, about the thirst and the hunger being of the same thing. should we gravitate towards foods that will hydrate us as well, and that way kind of not dilute it, but actually having foods with high contents of water inside of them in order to kind of stay hydrated as well?
Yes, and because it comes with its own natural minerals and nutrition in it as well. Somebody could, have a big slice of watermelon in place of their thirst. Well, you're getting a lot of, hydration just from that. So I'm always of the, school of, try a lot of things. Don't just stick with one thing. And, the variety really does make a big difference from the vegetables that you're eating, the fruits that you're eating, how you flavor your water. It just keeps things spicy. It keeps the body, having to recognize something new and getting nutrition from a different source because you're getting other things with fruits that you wouldn't just get from the plain water as well.
And we touched on it at the top of this conversation. Dr. Julie Gatza, by the way, is actually joining us this morning, and we're thrilled to have her on Highway to Health. But the thing about it is that I do eat differently in the summertime, and much like working out in the summertime, I've had to kind of force myself to make different choices. What is it about the heat precisely that makes us make some absolutely I used to think, oh, it must be wintertime when we're eating comfort food and all that, but I find myself eating so much more crap during the summertime if I can help it, and I'm trying not to help it. Why is it that the summertime encourages that?
I think part of it is we're so social. It's not just the eating holidays that we have at the wintertime. I think it's that we are at picnics and barbecues and parties and, there's graduations, and it's just an endless barrage of, one eating event compared to another. So I think it's that. And once you start in on the sugar train, you want more. Once you start in on the carb train and start eating a couple of pizzas a couple of times a week, you want more pizzas next week. So, we're not necessarily.
I want more pizza right now. Oh, I can't. Why do we have to wait till next week?
Now too. So, I just got off of a weekend visiting family, and it's so interesting because I couldn't wait to get back today and, just get back on my program. But I can feel myself wanting sugar, wanting carbohydrates because that's what I ate on the weekend. And, I also felt lousy last night when I got home going, oh my gosh, I'm so puffed up and, not feeling like myself.
That's a really nice question because, I've had there have been summers where I've kind of looked back over the course of the summer and, man, really, I really screwed the pooch. I mean, could I have gone to one more movie as an excuse to get M&Ms and popcorn in my system? I've had a pretty good summer this year. A couple of weeks ago, we had the entire staff of Radio Nemo come to the city of New Orleans for a big studio opening that we actually did down here. And of course, it meant a lot of business associates, a lot of friends and supporters were coming in and out of the building. It meant a lot of people from out of town getting taken out to a lot of bad places. I don't know if you know this. New Orleans has kind of a reputation for actually putting a little something extra on everything. And it set me back to some degree, but I felt good about the fact that I said, you know what, I'm just going to give myself a break this week. This is going to happen. And then I kind of reset it. When people fall off the wagon, as it were, and that sugar craving is suddenly back in the game, the carb craving is back, are there foods or are there approaches where you can reset back to what you're talking about, your cycle, your pattern, your diet, your lifestyle, sooner rather than later?
Yes, and that's a good question. Eating 3 meals a day is what you want to do at this point. So wake up in the morning, have 2 big glasses of water with lemon in it, prime the pump. Hydrate yourself. Then have yourself some eggs, maybe some vegetables in the morning. During lunch, I want you to eat some chicken and vegetables as well. Dinner, have some fish and vegetables, and then stop eating after that. And if you eat 3 times in the day and you don't blow off your breakfast, that will allow you to have the stable blood sugar throughout the day. It'll give you good nutrients that you need from that, enough protein. And if you want to throw some, good enzymes in like the Absorbate, it's just going to give you more nutrition, which will allow you to feel more sated. It will allow you to have, more weight loss because you're getting more nutrition from your food. And, your energy can improve and your digestive complaints can go away. Because if you have any whatsoever digestive complaint from gas, bloating, indigestion, constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux, all those are very common, but they are not normal. And you shouldn't have to think about your digestion more than once in the day.
Let me also ask you this too, because we always talk about a holistic life, the idea of tying it all together. Both myself and my producer, Phone Master Dre, are actually active human beings. We actually we work out, we go for long walks. That's important. In regards to your digestion, and we know the benefits of staying healthy and active. When is the best time to work out? What is a good way to kind of figure out when you want to be working out? And how can you best help your digestive system after a workout by what you consume?
I think it does also depend on each person as well, because I have patients that love to get up early, work out, and get it over with. I have other patients that, like to wind down at the end of the night and work out, and then the others that are out there, running in the heat. And I don't have an answer for that. I think it's just the fact of keeping a habit in and, sticking with it. Is if you're doing anything, pat yourself on the back and if you're doing it consistently, even better. So, you don't want to go to your workout so full. Obviously, you want, all this energy going towards muscles and pumping the blood and not having to digest your food as well. And I usually think that, a good hour after a workout is when you can start to eat, more protein and, sort of give the body what it needs as far as energy. But, around a workout, it shouldn't be too heavy of anything in the belly.
Swimming rules
Gotcha.
apply. I was actually thinking about that. So basically, everything your mom told you when you were a little kid and you spent an hour or two or three in the pool on a summer day, and it's like, don't you dare eat. Don't you dare eat. You have to wait. You have to wait at least an hour to let that stuff settle in. It's important, though. And like I said, it's interesting, too, because one of the things I find so fascinating and love talking about this is because, there's so many things about the human body that are consistent from one person to the next. Nutrition, diet, and what we like to eat are very, very different. So
Wow.
how do we as consumers, it's easy, look, if you're going to eat garbage, it's easy to make choices. If you're going to eat
Right.
for your best self where you actually enjoy the process of eating and don't just view it the way Tom Brady does as an opportunity to refuel, how do you go about
Right.
the business of figuring out what is good for you and what's good for you? You know what I'm saying?
You know, well, I think it's just the old rules apply. If your grandmother would approve, then go ahead and have it. I do think that none of us cook enough, and we're relying on solutions outside of the kitchen in our own house, and that's where you're getting yourself into trouble. Because if you're buying those foods and you're preparing them and you're spicing them and you're, following a recipe or, trying to make it the tastiest, or maybe you like to make the fastest meal, but make it, a healthy meal. Um, but once you start to get out there and you're eating things out of packages, boxes, and cans, and paying for a full meal that's already prepared for you, that's probably where people are getting into trouble.
Well, and then the other thing is too. So let me ask you this question, and like I said, if the answer is I don't know, that's fine too. So a lot of people don't have time to actually produce it fresh from the produce section, but they do make the effort to go and get like some frozen foods, like a place like Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or someplace else that claims with their food halos to actually be good. Is there a ways of guaranteeing that if we're actually getting our vegetables that way, that in fact can be a good option for us? Um,
I'm just I'm just not a believer that way. I
I
mean,
understand.
it's just I see all this fresh vegetables, and the other thing is, I my daughter food prepped 8 meals the other day on a Sunday. All she did was make more food than we would have eaten on a Sunday, and she put it in containers, and it was perfect. And so 8 times we got to come home and eat super healthy food. That took no time to do. So hard-boiled eggs, they aren't hard to boil, and you've got 12 eggs that you have a choice from throughout the week. So it's just a matter of what your priority is, and you're going to save money if you're, buying your food and preparing it yourself as compared to waiting to the last moment and going, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry now, I have to eat this. So it's a priority and an understanding. And are you healthy? Do you like the way you look? Are you feeling good? Do you sleep well? Are your hormones balanced? Is your skin great? If none of those are the answers that you want to admit to, then you probably have to change your food habits.
We use the term SAD, Standard American Diet, and
Right.
then the idea of the optimal diet too, as well. How far away is the standard American diet from the optimal diet? And for those people who are, okay, let me give you a scenario. Let's forget about people who are actually just kind of garbaging it up in garbage town. I mean, those people, they got a
Right.
long road to hoe. But let's just say you got the kind of person who's not having a muffin for breakfast. They're having a couple of Jimmy Dean sausages on the side of one scrambled egg they make. They get to lunch and they have a sandwich, half a sandwich and a salad. And then they get to the end of the day and they got their piece of protein and some frozen vegetables that they actually then steam up and kind of get going. And maybe they even bake a sweet potato. How far off is that character? I'm actually not referring to myself, but how far off is that character from like being where he or she should be?
Not far.
Good.
That sounds pretty darn good to me. So, maybe you don't want to rely on sandwiches every day for lunch. There's not going to be a whole bunch of food value to be eating, meat in bread. But, far from that, it sounds really good. It's high in protein. Every single one of the meals has it. You're putting vegetables in as well. Fine if you want to have frozen vegetables. Sometimes they freeze them, and then they're just, totally healthy. And you can steam them up. Just don't overcook them, and you're doing great.
Do me a favor, by the way, just for the sake of listeners who have not gotten a chance to enjoy your company before. Dr. Julie Gatza, by the way, is who we're talking to on Highway to Health. Tell our friends out there what the digestive problems of overeating in, we know what the long-term problem is, but the digestive problems of overeating in the moment, why it's such a bad idea, and how mindfulness and taking your time through the meal can make such a big difference in how we actually move things through our body and re-energize our body.
Sure. So when you decide to put any food into your mouth and chew it, you have to chew it adequate amount of times to start prepping the food for the digestive system. The whole purpose of digesting is to put that food into the small intestine. There's small, tiny holes that allow the nutrients to go into the bloodstream. The bloodstream then carries all those nutrients to the rest of the body. That is the purpose of eating good food. When you're eating too much, when you're eating bad food, when you're having things that maybe you have a sensitivity to that you can't break down, if you don't have enough enzymes being made in your own body, now you put food into the body. Let's say you don't chew it enough. Now you're putting a bit of stress on the digestive system that way. Over time, the internal system can get raw and inflamed. And now not just our nutrients going into the bloodstream that aren't broken down, you're also getting the unbroken down food. You can be reabsorbing toxins and feces into the bloodstream. So now the system is puffy, bloated, autoimmune disease starts. You now, are gassy and burpy and acid reflux, or you're constipated, or you have chronic diarrhea, or, you're taking all these over-the-counter things for the acid reflux and the GERDs. And every one of those things can be handled if you made the right choices, got some good enzymes in, didn't overload your body, and, started way back at, what's on your plate.
So basically, if you don't do all that stuff, you turn into Uncle Marvin, who nobody wants at the dinner table anyway, and that's really you want to avoid.
That's right.
You want to avoid that at all possible cost, because the long term goal here actually is to not make. You should always think about what you eat, but is there a point where you want to get to the place where you are thinking about what you want to eat and you are enjoying your food, but you're not struggling to put these meals together? A lot of this stuff should be headed towards the destination of reflexivity. That you're actually able to do it without thinking about it. In the same way we pick up a chip, you should actually understand to be able to pick up, whether it's cucumber or whether it's, to get a little dip of hummus with that cucumber. All of that
Right.
stuff needs to be like second nature. How do we get to that point? I mean, because
You
it's
know,
so
it's
easy.
It is. I was just telling somebody this. I used to pack my daughter's lunch every day for school, and she was a little pain sometimes, and she'd be like, "That's not lunchbox food," and I'm like, "Oh gosh." So I used to keep a list of everything inside the cabinet, handwritten notes of everything that she was determining was good lunchbox food for her that month or that week. Well, you could also do those with recipes, however you want to classify them and make it easily accessible to you. So if that's on your phone and you've got 7 different recipes that you like, are easy, they're not extensive to meal prep or do whatever you want that way. Get 7 under your belt and you can add another. Get 8 under your belt. You can have 10. And at that point, you'll start to build yourself your own wide variety of things that you aren't going to be sick of because you have them accessible to, not have to rethink the wheel every time you're making a meal.
Guys, I want you to go to naturesources.com. You can also find Dr. Julie Gatza on the gram of Instagram at Dr. Julie Healthy Vibes. It's all one word. It's Dr. Julie Healthy Vibes. And check her out over there. Health educator, nutrition expert, chiropractic physician, and founder of Florida's Wellness Institute has joined us this morning. Okay. If in fact, last question, you're at the pool, you have a great swim, you have a great time with all your friends, and you get out and somebody's got a big table spread to actually have a great meal an hour after you finish swimming. What do you want on that table, Dr. Julie?
Myself?
Yeah.
Everything fresh. I mean, if it's grilled chicken, grilled salmon, I want that. I'm going to eat it first. If it's a steak, great. I'll have a steak. I want salads and fruits, and that to me is like, if somebody else makes that and it's those sorts of choices, that's the best.
Oh, I got to tell you, I'm going to that party too. So we'll all go swimming together, and we'll have a couple of nice pieces of steak, a really, really good salad, and maybe some fresh vegetables. Not maybe, definitely some fresh vegetables on the side while taking sips of water during our meal. Dr. Julie, I can't wait to talk to you again. Thank you so much for making the time with us this morning.
Thank you so much. And if anyone's interested, they can get some free samples of that Absorbaid by going to the Nature's Sources website.
Naturesources.com. Big thanks to Dr. Julie. We'll be back on the other side of this.